gives me immense pleasure to introduce my next speaker. Many of us in our lives, oh, I got stuck in traffic, life is so challenging, life is so bad. Oh, the weather was bad today, something like that happened. And then, this is life, it's not so good. How many of us do that? We crib, right? So many times, right? Easy, we are all humans, right? But, and we think life, life is challenging, it's an adversary to move around in traffic or to achieve things, financial things, or sometimes finances don't work and things like this. How many of us accept that? We crib about it, correct? So ladies and gentlemen, we thought of having a speaker from a field that sees adversary at the highest level. And that is the Indian Defense Forces. For me to introduce a speaker is also personally a matter of honor. Reason being, Fauj ka khana maine bhi bahut baar khaya. I've been to the rejection center Allahabad. And I don't know how many of you have ever applied, or your brothers or sisters, anybody has applied. They give the same speech every time. Shah Rukh Khan came here, Ganguly came here, but they'll never tell you where were you lagging. And then they'll send you home. And trust me, that's the most depressing thing, to remove that badge, hand it over and walk out of that academy. You're like, okay, one more year. So for me to get this gentleman here on stage is immense pleasure. He's going to be talking about the threshold of leadership. And trust me, being in the Forge, you learn leadership by, as we say, cutting your teeth out. It's by sheer grit that you learn leadership there. Ladies and gentlemen, I want a thunderous round of applause because he is the Vishisht Seva Medal honored by he is the holder of the Vishisht Seva Medal honored by the President of India. Keep the applause going on, ladies and gentlemen. He was involved of a corps which is also called the King. If you know the Fauji terms and parlance, let me just tell you this. Infantry is like, people don't love infantry. Anybody who wants to join will say no infantry, but they always want to go for artillery because it's called the King. And the biggest example, we never saw wars because I think most of us were not there after 62 and 71. We are just newborns, or millennials mostly. But we saw artillery really hammering the lives out of intruders at Kargil. And he was the head. Ladies and gentlemen, the former Additional Director General for Artillery for the Indian Armed Forces, please welcome Major General SVP Singh on stage.
Ladies and gentlemen, and the galaxy of industry leaders, I am really humbled by your Master of Ceremonies because he has raised me to a level. A short person is making me feel very tall. So my gratitude to the organizers here at the first, Mr. Chinmay, who spoke to me a few times, or we spoke to each other, and he was another motivator to me to take on this talk. So my subject allocated is threshold of leadership and leadership in adversity. That's what Mr. Chinmay invoked upon me to speak on. But as I heard Dr. Chaudhary, I felt more Indian than ever before. How was that? Because he spoke about the license Raj. And my mind was casting that India to the world, particularly the Western world, was known as a nation of snake charmers. And today, India, the Bharat, is charming the nation. We are sitting in the fulcrum of the two ends of the world's continuum and being the balancer. And when we say and it's been said we are looking to be a superpower, I think it is you who is going to take us forward in that as leaders of industry. And when I say industry, I also imply the military-industrial complex. Now, you see, leadership in adversity, we got to strategize it. And how that strategy comes, I can recall to you what Mike Tyson said about strategy. He said, everyone has a strategy till you've hit a punch in your face. And that is where adversity activates your senses. Let me tell you that influential leaders emerge from adversity in all walks of life. Because adversity is something like I want to compare with a blacksmith who turns out steel. He hammers, beats it hard, and what turns out is 10 times more robust metal. And what happens to us when we start wearing uniform? And I'll tell you, I wore uniform from the age of 11. I went to the Rashtriya Indian Military College, which is an entry through the UPSC exam. And today, in the audience, I have got my another gunner mate from the artillery, my classmate, who belongs to Bangalore, and he's honored me by his presence, Colonel K.S. Recounts. And he and his wife are leaders in the wellness world today. So we have been there now 60 diamond years plus. So we call ourselves as the diamonds. So that is it. Now let us face it, that significance, opportunity in different walks of life, to use every setback to harden the steel of your leadership is what is most important. And our academy training just trains us for that, and we call it Ragda, that made us Takda. That is rigor. We fit for all sorts of rigor. You see, we are trained, we are hammered. The body is roughened and toughened. And so when you're in service, when you're in the operational areas, when you're in your war, when you hear the artillery shells flying over you, you get battle inoculated. And how is it? And that is it. When your mind, when you're dog tired, the mind tells you, go the distance. And so you realize that apart from physical tiredness, your mind has been trained to overcome great obstacles. I was a brigade major in Kargil, but that was way back in 87, 89, and Kargil war happened in 99. But it was an active area. There was a lot of firing on all the time. And I asked my general officer commanding one day, somehow or the other established a rapport. General officer commanding was a major general, and I was a major. And you couldn't dream of that rank at that time. So he was overlooking the Saichen Glacier operations also. So one evening at his residence, I took the liberty of asking him, yes sir, what is the most difficult task or thing which you are feeling in your command? And he said, it is when I come back from the glacier, I cannot sleep that night because our men are sleeping on snow at 18, 20, 23,000 feet. Way back in 87, we didn't have that type of clothing. We didn't have it in 62, but then we didn't have it at that time even for these heights. You say, I can't sleep. That is adversity. And why I'm mentioning this adversity is that it is the Indian army, the Indian military, where our men can face these adversities with a cheer, with a smile. He can take a lot of battering. Now, so that's the way I will put. What I would like to quote here, General Karl von Clausewitz, a Prussian general, an exponent in the art of war. And he said, danger and physical exertion are the constant sources of friction In war, that is the commander's responsibility, and he has to master both. And so now, here I would like to just show what he has written. Very golden words. It is the impact of the ebbing of moral and physical strength of the heart-rending spectacle of the dead and the wounded that the commander has to withstand. First within himself, and then in all those who have entrusted him with their hopes and fears. And those hopes and fears are the many commands, but not only that. He also lives with responsibilities to the families who are back home. He is well sensitized on that. So there are two specific responsibilities that military leaders must address during their combat operations. First is combat mission, and second is decision making. Because the two of them, they devolve upon the commander a life and death situation. He is going to be responsible for his own decisions. He is going to be responsible for the decisions and actions of his subordinates who are in the forward area fighting the war, and he is also going to make the difference between victory and death. And remember, there are no runners-up in war. Either you're defeated or you come out victorious. So what we did as we grew post-independent India, we never really lost a war. I will say 1962 war was not a defeat. It was the defeat of the political hierarchy. And I'm very emphatic to say that. But as we came to 1971, we got the greatest victory a nation could do in the military history. We created a nation and we captured 93,000 prisoners of war, unknown in the history of warfare. So how is it this has happened? This is the Indian Military Academy product, and we live by one motto, and that is the Chetwodian model, a British field marshal who on its inauguration in 1932, he said some golden words, and we live by it. Firstly, he said the safety, honor and welfare of your country comes first, always and every time. Secondly, the honor, welfare and comfort of the men you command comes next. And next were the golden words by which we live. Your own ease, comfort and safety comes last, always and every time. So you have Vikram Batra in Kargil War saying, after having captured a very difficult objective, ye dil mange more. And he volunteers to take on the next action and receives India's highest Paramveer Chakra award posthumously. Not yet 22. So this is what we have imbibed. Now, how it comes? It comes through unit cohesion. It comes through good leadership. And we live by Izzat of the Pantan, which is Naam, Namak and Nishan. These are the most dear things to us. So we keep the flags flying of our Pantan, of our military and of our Tiranga. So that is where we stand. Now, we've had great commanders in the Indian Army, but we like to take quotes from the outsiders. But I will tell you, in 1965 war, Lieutenant General Harbaksh Singh, he was the commander, army commander of the Western Theatre. Those days the command headquarters used to be in Shimla and the advanced operation headquarters used to be in Ambala. So he reached there, the things were not going well in Punjab with the war in Pakistan. And things were very distinct. He had sacked a couple of major generals already. And in the night, at about 1 o'clock, he was going to sleep, and he told his ADC that, listen, Amrinder, and this is that Captain Amrinder Singh, the Punjab Chief Minister. He said, Amrinder, 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to leave, and I'm going to be there Jalandhar, Vyas. I don't want to be disturbed with any calls. And you be ready. But after half an hour, Amrinder wakes him up. And he says, the army chief is on the line. And he wants to speak to you. She gets on the line and he says, yes, Muchu, what is it? You see, he was a very daredevil. He didn't salutate him as sir. And he called him by his nickname. And perhaps he used to call him. He says, Muchu, what is it? And he gave me orders that the army should withdraw to the line of Vyas, which is the Grand Trunk Road, which was the lifeline to Jammu and Kashmir. Now, this is written in the book by Amrinder Singh and another General Mao Shergill, who shared the co-authorship. He told him, Mushu, Har Paksh doesn't take orders for withdrawal. I refuse your orders and I will see the war through. He was there by about 5 o'clock and now the battle was fought and the war turned its tide. Punjab was saved, J&K was saved, Pakistan was defeated. One man decided the destiny of a nation, adversity into success and victory. I now come to another great example, and that great example is the first 1947-48 war of Major Somnath Sharma, who was the first recipient of the Paramveer Chakra posthumously in the Baramulla sector, Badgam. And why I have picked up on him? Because I owe with great pride gratitude to the school where we both have studied, the Rashtriya Military College, and he was a product of that. He had volunteered to go to the war sector. The battalion was in Anand Parvat at Delhi. His father was Major General Director of the Army Medical Services, saying that this man is the low medical category, his arm is in plaster, he is not fit to go, and he overruled everyone, and he said, I will go. And he goes to the action. His company is ordered to go and take post at Badgam, which is short of Baramulla. Pakistani raiders, the Razakars, had already come, disguised in civil uniform, commanded by one Colonel Akbar Khan, who was a Sanders-trained officer. And they take up post not knowing that the Razakars are already there. They knew they were in Baramulla and Badgam was much short, about 30 kilometers behind. But as they took post, the Razakars emerged from that village and terrible firing took place from all three directions. Somnath Sharma took charge of the situation. And during that, he told his men, there were 70 of them. This was a company strength, but they could not muster at that time. And he told them, we have to fight, and we have to fight, and we have to defeat these people. We have to save Srinagar and Srinagar Aerodrome. That was his mission. His arm in plaster, he found that his men were suffering casualties. Many had been killed. He started filling the magazines of his machine gunners and handing them over picket to picket, trench to trench. And in the process, shell lands near him and he dies. But what had he done with these actions? He had raised the motivation level of his men that 6 hours after his death, the company did not abandon the post. They went on fighting. And why? I should not tell you. Having told you that, I will first touch the last message, which is with this photograph. You see, the enemy is only 50 yards from us. We are heavily outnumbered. We are under devastating fire. I shall not withdraw an inch, but will fight to our last man and last round. This is message, the company lived by it till they moved out, good reinforcements had arrived, and then they fought, and Baramulla was also saved. This is what mission sharpness, it was laser sharp. You know, a man could do what he did, and then his inspiring leadership. as we can see, covers all the aspects to motivate his men, to maintain the momentum of the battle, the courage with which they fought valiantly, selflessness, personally filling magazines and handing over to your men so that not a second is wasted in the fight. And resolve and perseverance were all that which came out. But Somnath Sharma was not heroic here itself. In Second World War, we withdrew in Burma and because of the Japanese offensive, and then he realized when he came that his buddy, the Audley, he could not come, that he had been wounded. So he wants to go back. And the British commanding officer says, no, you cannot go. He said, no way, I cannot leave my buddy behind. He goes, fireman lifts him and gets back. So heroism and bravery was in him. And that is why I think I can even ask the audience to give a clap in his memory for this great achiever. So I'll not go long because being an artillery man, Chinmay, we start artillery fire on time, but then we keep pounding targets till we want to really destroy the target totally. So my next example, the next one I'm taking is again from a man who belonged to my school. And he belongs to the neighboring country. And he was the Lieutenant General Sahibzada Yaqub Khan from the Najibabad royal family of India. He was the Eastern Army Commander of Pakistan, the Chief Martial Law Administrator of East Pakistan. Why I have taken this example is ethics of a soldier. It goes beyond your own and other armies. He was ordered by General Yahya Khan, President and military dictator of Pakistan, to carry out a military crackdown on the East Pakistanis, implying the Bengalis. And he told Yahya Khan, like General Harbaksh told his chief, this order is not implementable. I refuse. And he was flown back, he resigned, and it ended there. But why I picked up this example? I read a book somewhere in 76, 77, where in that book, there were about 2 pages on Yaqub Khan, on this stand on moral courage and what he did. So that it ended. But in 1997, we had a platinum jubilee of my school, where the Pakistani old boys were invited, after due permission from the government. And I found myself face to face with General Sahibzada Yaqub Khan in the dormitory, the same house I belonged to where he was. And I said, sir, I want to have a word with you. He said, yes. I said, sir, I wrote in my diary, I wish I can stand up like General Sahibzada Yaqub Khan and be like you to disobey orders. So he said, what have I done, son? I said, sir, I read this book and all. Then he put his arm on my shoulder and his right arm on his heart, and he said, I will not be able to sleep tonight. You have moved my heart. Let me tell you, it has not come out anywhere, but this is a personal interlude, and that's why I've taken this example. He said, disobedience is a very good thing, provided you stand up being an unlawful command, and you must have moral courage of conviction for that. That is the message he gave me. Secondly, he said, Yahya Khan gave orders that I should be put in solitary confinement and shot in the head after interrogating him. That it did not happen, he said, Allah only knows. But he said, remember, then he walked me down to his wife and he said, Tuba, this boy has moved my heart, I will not sleep tonight. So she asked me, what have you done to him? So then he himself told what I had done to him. So I call this the courage of conviction of Sahibzada Yaqub Khan. It is for us all in every walk of life. What it is, moral courage, I've covered. It was a great moral conviction in ethical leadership. Then strategic perception is very important for higher leaders of the industry here. Strategic perception is very important. And you see, here I would say General Yahya Khan unheeded advice of his chief general in East Pakistan. Result, Yahya Khan created adversity. Bangladesh was born. And Field Marshal Manekshaw told the Prime Minister Indira Gandhi when she wanted the Indian Army to move in April 1971 into East Pakistan. He said, Madam, I can assure you 100% defeat. After the cabinet meeting, she broke up the cabinet meeting, calling it after 4 hours, and called him, hey, what is it? You have said, he said, firstly, the passes are open, Chinese can come. After that, June, July, monsoons will come, East Pakistan will be flooded, the army will not be able to move. Thirdly, you have to give me funds, my army has to be ready, my tanks have to be ready, my guns have to be ready. And she paid heed to the general, then got the biggest victory, as I said. So this is the case, how you can stand up in life and deal with the situation. Implications for corporate and academia, I have personally taken the last point in this slide, which is there. I think you cannot be able to see because of the chairs. But I'll read out, the principles of ethical decision making are equally important. Prioritize ethics over obedience. The well-being of employees, customers, and stakeholders should be a KRA, and negotiations are very important aspects as well. Now, I had mentioned about ethics of a leader. This is what happened in Kargil War. Our own brigadier, after having captured Tiger Hill, this is what he said about an opposing company commander. This company commander launched number of counterattacks on the Tiger Hill feature, could not succeed. But when the bodies were being handed over, initially Pakistan refused them. They are not our soldiers. But ultimately when they were being handed over, he put it in his pocket. This fellow was a valiant soldier and he deserved to be decorated. He was decorated with the highest Pakistani military award. So when I say ethics of a soldier, there are a number of stories like that. It cuts across because in victory also soldiers feel the other side also has families. And so we really feel a great sense of empathy. Now I'll come closer home to myself as to what I did just before war, how I got exposed to certain situation where I only realized later what I had done and how it happened. It was in a preparatory firing just before the war, the artillery firing. And artillery firing, is a very, very important thing. If you do fire a wrong round, it is considered to be a major offense. I just wanted to put it off for a while. No? Okay. So what had happened? We worked out a gun data in the command post. The gun data worked out had a little error. But I, as the gun position officer who's called the kingpin of the gun position, passed that order. And the gun fired at the data which was passed by me, based on what I saw my staff had done. From the target end, the round never landed there. So now you can imagine what would have happened. It can land on your own troops, it can land in your own villages. So artillery calls it a blunder, a near crime. And punishments are very stringent. In this case, within that split second, when the command came, stand fast on the target end, my eyes went to the command post car, and I gave back to the two technical assistants who were there. because there was some difference in the data worked out and I passed the wrong data. But the Havaldar there, the detachment commander of this command post, he told me this, "Saab mujhe bata lo, main pension ja raha hu 2 mahine ke baad, main jawan ki pension jaunga." And my operator in the command post, he retired as an honorary captain later. He was a solid guy, and he was also solid in his physical build. He said, "Saab, aap hi ne bachana hai." I was 21 something, I was a subaltern, and I heard it. The safety staff, jumps in. And all this has happened in about a minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes. They come, what has happened? Well, slip of the tongue. There's a slip of the tongue from me. Because what happened? I changed the data. Jaldi change karo. And so they changed the data with a pencil. We work with pencils. And those days, there was a court of inquiry. And we have got a very good drill in the artillery. You do a thing, mistake, you go back to your officer's mess, sitting in the jeep, but not in the jeep's trailer. So, there's very good drills, And sometimes you're told to remove your belt also. You're no more an officer. So, things are very serious. So, I removed my belt also as I was going back because I knew what had happened is unpardonable. Court of inquiry took place. I stuck to my guns. And we shared one secret in my battery. Yet this will not be known. The command post staff will not tell outside what had happened. This was a detachment of 8-9 of us. I said a lifetime happened. And he stood up. And he said, "I'm proud of you. You will make a good leader and only command this regiment. The men will go with you blindly." Now, this was somewhere in 74, about 2 years after that. I did not know that I was a leader till that time. So I carried out a lot of introspection. Okay, what has happened and what are the lessons learned in that? And the lessons learned are many. Not only that, 52 years later, I went to my regiment, which was in Firozpur, and during that, in the morning when I arrived, I was told that so and so of your time are there when I was a subaltern. And I found that my command post staff were 8, 9, 4 of them were there. My gun detachment commander was there. So after ushering me to the guest room, having tea, coffee, I tell the commanding officer and Subedar Major, in the evening, Bada Khana, I am going to put up a skit. I want the command post to be laid out on the stage. So they laughed. I said, "I'm very serious." And I called the staff after a Mandir Gurdwara prayed and I said, "This is what we're going to enact and don't tell anyone." And when I told them the story, there was a lot of clapping. Because why? You see, this is not a strong point of, and he's already taken me to thank you. And I am not really tuned to, I will tell you why I am not tuned to thank you. When I joined the RAMC at the age of 11, the first thing we were told, yeah, there are no thank yous or sorries in the army. No. So, what happened? This became, when this was studied in my regiment, I realized what one had done. So, it is a leadership. You have to make tough calls sometimes. Your men, it was a leader group situation. I took the command from my operator. He said, "Sir, aapne bachana hai." And the Havaldar pleaded to me, "Mujhe bacha do." And the promotions of all these guys would have got affected, severe punishment would have come. So the action happened. I did not deflect responsibility because in that fraction of moment I also realized overall I am the kingpin of the gun position as the artillery calls the gun position officer. So I must take the responsibility. So it became a leadership by example perhaps. And then is trust and loyalty of subordinates. I inherited it that day. And I could catch, those people were now Subedars when I was commanding the regiment. I could catch the JCO and tell with his belt, pull yourself up, rather than doing anything. So that was it was a very adverse situation, but converted into a great example, which only time told me. And it was a decision taken in a split seconds. But yes, It was a white lie spoken, but white lie was spoken not for personal gain or for any malicious purpose for that. So that was it, this incident. I really grew with it. My integrity in the regiment or in the service, I grew with it. I learned the ability to take up responsibility for my men and take the blame on myself. I learned it that day and I lived through it in my service, and I still try to practice, and I tell wherever I go and speak, do that, because you've got subordinates. If you've got 360 degrees reporting pattern in the corporate world, you're also 360 degrees responsible for their complete well-being, for their advancements, for their qualitative requirements, for their remunerations. No pink slips. If you can help, that's where I would say. Now, I'll give you one more example which really did test me. Off now, right now. I'll come to next slide. Now, my last example, and of course, Chinmay is very large-hearted, I see. He doesn't really worry much about timings. So the last example was in Operation Rakshak in Punjab. My regiment was in the counter-insurgency, counter-terrorism role. An active Operation Rakshak was on. I get a call at about 1:30, 2 o'clock in the night. I am told that so-and-so has run away from the ammunition defense stores dump, ammunition dump and defense stores dump, which was 40 kilometers behind. He's run away with a weapon which is 7.62 mm SLR, it's a big rifle, with loaded 20 rounds in the magazine. I happened to be at home that time, the operation was on. We were here for about 2 days, for rest and relief. My report card after this talk, the report card writer is sitting here, So she asked what's happened. I said, you go to sleep. There's nothing happened, and I went into the dining room. We had the old telephones of the Second World War vintage. We used to call it 5 Alpha. Handle mara, exchange ko bola ke adjutant, second in command, and Subedar Major ko jaldi se bhejo. I didn't want to go to the regiment at that time because it would have, activated what the hell is happening. But in that time when they came, now I felt I was definitely seasoned enough, having gone through, a lot of operational areas. I noted down my points like an operational order, and I said the following actions have to be taken when they assembled. I knew that this gentleman was an offender, perpetual offender. So, my greatest worry in war, I said, the command of your men is your worry. My greatest worry was safety of lives. Safety of lives of all, including civilians. He's carrying a weapon, 20 rounds, minimum 20 people will be shot. It weighed very heavily on me when the moment this call came to me. Second, my own men, their safety and security. You see, we were going to discharge him from service. Somewhere he came to know. So I felt maybe he is wanting to take revenge killing. So I told them, listen, first of all, perimeter patrolling and security of the complete unit area with armed pickets. Of all key appointment holders, there will be perimeter patrolling, armed guard patrolling outside their houses, residences. The in and out of the cantonments where the movement takes place, our 2 men armed will be present alongside the guard and picket already there. I said, no school-going children tomorrow. School-going children will not go. Families will not move out of the unit area, and immediately I rang up the division headquarter intelligence staff officer, who was a lieutenant colonel and I was a full colonel, and he was a very close friend of mine. He was senior to me, otherwise in commission. And I told him, I said, this is what has happened, you have to hold my hand. He said, bol kya karna hai? So I said, the following actions I request. This fellow belongs to Jammu. So please, activate the police, the railway protection force, the police at all railway stations, at all bus stands, and all movements wherever possible. And I said, there is a headquarters 29 David Mamun, please activate them if they can put this thing. I said, sir, there is the joint check post at Madhopur. If we could have the army people also there, all the vehicles are checked. And after having done all that reporting, I rang up my commander at about 6 o'clock in the morning, expecting a mouthful, because you know the army doesn't take lightly. Zero error syndrome is very much there also. So I told him, this is what has happened, this is what the actions I have taken, and I'm following it up. As per special army orders, we will implement everything. He said, okay, thank you. And he put the phone down. So I was much relieved about that also. Now what happened? When I came to the office, these three team, Subhadra Major, my adjutant and who I second in command tell me, said, sir, we will wait till such time, till about, lunch time or after lunch, and not report all above in the headquarters. So what happens, such a case when weapon is moved, person is run away, you have to report it immediately to the brigade, division, corps, command, and the army headquarters, military operations, military intelligence, adjutant general's branch. It goes to all. And it has to be done within 6 hours of the incident. You see, this man is interfering with artillery firing. But I'm closing. So what happens is, I said no. One wrong should not compound another wrong. We will report everything truthfully, honestly. So the signals went out by about 10 o'clock. At 11 o'clock, this staff officer whom I had spoken to, he comes to my office. And he tells me, and I'm quoting him, he said, because of my height, he was a tall chap, 6 feet 3 inches, he had named me the only tiger. And he tells me the only tiger ki 10 ungle ghee shakkar mein hai. I said, sir, what has happened? He said the general officer commanding had said that the CO will do the unit court of inquiry. As per rules, it had to be a staff court inquiry. As per rules, this fellow had to be court-martialed. As per rules, he would face district court-martial, and 2 years imprisonment was the minimum punishment. But when it came to a unit court inquiry, I had it in my hands. And what happened? The GOC perhaps had a good impression or whatever. He told that he'll do a good, honest job, which I thought later was a great feather in the cap. I did the court of inquiry, court-martialed him. My powers of court-martial were 1 year imprisonment, imprisoned him. Discharge. When you are in prison, you are discharged from service. And so, these are the lessons which really emerged in this. The mission, my mission was focus on saving human lives. And I'm telling you, this guy got caught 12 hours later at Joint Check Post Madhopur. He was going to, when he was interrogated, he was going to Jammu to take revenge on a person who had got his brother implicated in a murder case falsely, and his brother was in jail. He wanted to kill him. So the military mind of these military intelligence and military police were there. They were checking each vehicle. And they found, our rifle, we keep chindi, the one which clean our barrels, is little white in color. They found little of that chindi jutting out. And he had covered himself with a bed sheet. So they nabbed him. And the truth came out, that this is what he was doing. So he faced a court-martial. And in that court-martial after that, you got a discharge drill and all. And one has to, as you grow up here, in the army, what happens? You're responsible for the command of your men, for their welfare, for their punishments, for their food, for their families' welfare. If they are admitted, we all go, the ladies go, look up, so it's a great organization. You're doing everything, your HR, everything, discipline, everything is with one man who controls. And you have seen a commanding officer's powers, he can jail a person up to 1 year. It's tremendous powers which you don't want to use, a good leader doesn't want to use, it is thrust upon him. So all that, when in the evening at 4 o'clock I get a message okay, he is nabbed. And first thing I asked the adjutant who told me, I said, has he used the weapon? And he says, no, sir. I said, let's have a drink, whether it is 4 o'clock or not. Everything is fallen in place. I'm not worried what merges after this, as long as lives are lost. So ladies and gentlemen, this is adversity in leadership, which we have to show. But let me tell you, your mind is not trained. Your mind is that like blacksmith, who has beaten that to convert into a robust metal. It is so trained that it functions ipso facto. Things roll out. And that is why, when intelligence fails, it's victory for one side and defeat for the other. So Israel is tasting that intelligence failure. We saw it in Galwan, we saw it in Kargil, but then it is India which converts adversity into victory. General Malik, Chief of the Army Staff in Kargil, he said, we were deficient of equipment very badly. He said, we will fight with what we have. And you know what we did in Kargil. People, our soldiers, when they climbed peaks, 80 degrees in gradient at night time. And let me tell you, the food they carry, it freezes like snow. You have to bomb it and heat it again. That is all part of adversity in leadership. So I've really covered 4 actions. First was Somnath Sharma, whom one admires. Sahib Dada Yaqub Khan I compared because they gave us a country being created and our own leadership to the fore. And then, of course, the great work done by me that I could also fire on a wrong data and hold it up today. And lastly, I must thank Mr. Chinmay because I've been allowed the datum limits of exceeding my time. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
To stay informed about the startup ecosystem, subscribe to My Startup TV.